Few figures in American business history evoke such contradictory reactions as Cornelius Vanderbilt, characterized by some as a crude, temperamental bully who terrified those around him, while simultaneously recognized as one of history's wealthiest individuals and a brilliant strategic mind. At his peak, this man controlled more personal wealth than the entire United States Treasury held in its reserves. His story predates the legendary fortunes of Rockefeller and Ford, marking him as America's prototype industrialist, earning the dubious distinction of being labeled the original robber baron, a title reserved for those who built colossal empires through merciless business tactics. What makes Vanderbilt's narrative particularly compelling is its quintessential rags-to-riches trajectory. His family arrived in America not as free settlers, but as indentured servants, making his eventual accumulation of unprecedented wealth and influence all the more remarkable. To understand how one man transformed nothing into everything, we must journey back to early 19th century New York, where a young boy was about to embark on a path that would reshape American commerce forever. Cornelius abandoned formal education at 11 years old, choosing instead to labor alongside his father, operating a small ferry service across New York Harbor. This vessel transported cargo and passengers between shores, and young Cornelius absorbed every aspect of the trade. After mastering the fundamentals, he developed ambitions beyond working for his father. He envisioned operating his own independent ferry service, but this dream required capital he didn't possess. Specifically, he needed a boat. His mother cultivated a small farm and had managed to accumulate modest savings. She agreed to advance her son $100, sufficient to purchase a basic sailboat, but attached a demanding condition. Cornelius would receive the loan only after clearing an extraordinarily rocky field so she could expand her farming operations. Never one to shy from hard work, Cornelius accepted immediately, though he quickly realized the task's magnitude would require more time than he could afford alone. Demonstrating early entrepreneurial creativity, he recruited neighborhood children to assist with the back-breaking labor, promising them complimentary boat rides once he launched his business. This collaborative effort succeeded in clearing the field. His mother honored her commitment, and at just 16 years old, Cornelius became a boat owner. He immediately commenced ferry operations, transporting both cargo and passengers between Staten Island and Manhattan. Competition saturated this market, with numerous boat operators offering similar services, but Vanderbilt deployed a strategy that would define his entire career: aggressive price undercutting. He consistently offered the market's lowest fares, positioning himself as the budget option. His reputation for dependable and economical service grew rapidly, but the critical factor in his success was his approach to profits. After repaying his mother, he channeled every cent of earnings back into expansion rather than personal consumption. This reinvestment strategy enabled him to acquire a second vessel, then a third, then more. This approach represents capitalism's fundamental growth formula, not dissimilar to how modern entrepreneurs like Jeff Bezos constructed Amazon. Live frugally personally while funneling all business profits into aggressive expansion, repeating this cycle continuously to build an empire. Vanderbilt's relentless work ethic accelerated this process dramatically. Before long, he commanded an entire fleet providing transportation services across multiple routes, earning him the nickname the Commodore among maritime communities. His fortunes expanded further during the War of 1812 between America and Britain, when the federal government awarded him a profitable contract to transport military personnel aboard his vessels. Despite working exhausting hours, Cornelius somehow found time to marry at 19, choosing his cousin as his bride. This union eventually produced 13 children, though by numerous accounts, he proved neither an attentive husband nor caring father. Reports consistently describe Cornelius neglecting his family, and maintaining a deeply troubled domestic life. At one point, he had his wife temporarily institutionalized in a mental asylum. Years later, he committed one of his sons to similar confinement simply because the young man experienced epileptic seizures, which Cornelius interpreted as weakness and psychological deficiency. His business operations, however, flourished spectacularly. By the late 1820s, Cornelius identified the next transformative opportunity: steamboat technology. He recognized that steam-powered vessels offered dramatically superior efficiency compared to traditional sailboats, prompting him to redirect his investments toward acquiring steamboats. Once again, he implemented his proven tactical approach, initially establishing prices far below every competitor, deliberately attracting their customers through sheer affordability. He occasionally provided certain routes completely free of charge. Cornelius remained unconcerned about operating at a loss on individual trips because his reasoning was straightforward. As long as his financial reserves exceeded his competitors, he could systematically bankrupt them by capturing their entire customer base, then subsequently raise prices to profitable levels once competition vanished. These aggressive tactics indeed forced several rival operators into bankruptcy. In many instances, Cornelius would then purchase their failed businesses at severely discounted valuations once owners recognized they couldn't match his pricing power. Several larger steamboat corporations chose a different approach, simply paying Cornelius substantial sums to cease operations in their territories and avoid competitive conflicts. When Cornelius began operating along the Hudson River, an established entity called the Steamboat Association paid him $100,000 to withdraw his vessels from their area. For them, paying Vanderbilt off proved more economical than attempting to compete against his artificially depressed prices. Naturally, each time Cornelius received such payoffs or acquired a competitor at reduced cost, his fleet expanded further, amplifying his wealth and market dominance. To Cornelius, wealth accumulation was essentially a competitive game he was determined to win. Yet, despite his growing fortune, established wealthy elites never fully accepted him into their circles. His lack of formal education hindered acceptance, as Cornelius struggled with proper written communication, and his appearance and speech patterns differed markedly from upper-class norms. Rather than fighting this perception, Cornelius strategically leveraged his working-class origins, marketing his vessels as the People's Line, affordable transportation for ordinary citizens. Perpetually unsatisfied with current achievements, Cornelius identified his next major opportunity in 1849. The California Gold Rush. You've likely heard the observation that during gold rushes, those selling equipment like pickaxes often accumulated more wealth than prospectors actually searching for gold, given the overwhelming number of fortune seekers. But the individuals who profited most spectacularly from the gold rush were those controlling transportation to California. Following gold's discovery in California, hundreds of thousands of people migrated westward, hoping to strike it rich, creating the largest mass population movement in American history to that point. California lacked railroad connections to the rest of the nation, and Cornelius immediately recognized this opportunity, launching boat service to California. While numerous entrepreneurs offered similar services, Cornelius differentiated his operation by establishing a new route through Nicaragua, approximately 600 miles shorter than the Panama route competitors utilized. He negotiated an exclusive agreement with Nicaragua's government, and consequently, his trips operated faster and cheaper than alternatives, attracting substantially more customers. As gold fever intensified and migrants flooded westward, Cornelius profited from every journey. However, in 1853, Cornelius did something virtually unprecedented in his life. He took a vacation. Approaching 60 years old, and having worked essentially non-stop since childhood, he decided to finally take genuine time off, purchasing an enormous yacht for a European tour with his family. Almost immediately, disaster struck. He had delegated management of his Nicaragua transport operation to two partners named Morgan and Garrison, who proceeded to betray him through a clandestine arrangement with Nicaragua's new president, William Walker, who had forcefully seized control of the country. This deal essentially transferred Cornelius's exclusive operational rights entirely to Morgan and Garrison. Upon discovering this betrayal, Cornelius dispatched one of history's most concise and menacing letters. "Gentlemen, you have undertaken to cheat me. I won't sue you, for the law is too slow. I'll ruin you. Yours truly, Cornelius Vanderbilt." He executed this promise methodically. Cornelius immediately established a competing transit company in the region, deploying his characteristic tactic of offering absurdly low prices to capture customers. He then refused to transport any passengers to or from Nicaragua, effectively blockading the country. He convinced neighboring nations to withhold recognition of Walker's government. Ultimately, he helped finance military action that completely overthrew Nicaragua's government. Essentially, as his letter promised, he comprehensively destroyed those who had crossed him. By this point, Cornelius was approaching 60, an age when most people contemplate retirement and seek relaxation. Not Cornelius. He was preparing to monopolize an entirely different industry. But first, consider his personal life developments. In 1868, his wife died, the same woman he had briefly institutionalized. Just 1 year later, Cornelius married again, this time a woman named Frank Armstrong Crawford. Yes, that's correct. His new wife's name was Frank. Apparently, her parents had promised to name their child after their closest friend, assuming they would have a son. When they had a daughter instead, they honored the agreement anyway, naming her Frank regardless. Cornelius married Frank, who was over 40 years his junior. Making this situation even more peculiar, Frank was another of his cousins. This isn't fiction. Cornelius's first marriage was to his cousin Sophia, and with her deceased, he married yet another cousin named Frank within a year. While cousin marriages were more socially acceptable during that era, it remains noteworthy that despite traveling globally, both his wives were cousins. His personal life remained deeply unconventional, but professionally, he was entering his most transformative phase. Cornelius constantly anticipated future trends, and just as he had previously identified steamboats as revolutionary technology, he now focused on railroads. He observed that freight transportation was increasingly shifting from waterborne to rail-based, and to maintain his transportation dominance, he needed to pivot accordingly. Cornelius began liquidating his ship fleet, redirecting capital into railroad investments. Prior to his involvement, the railroad industry consisted of numerous independently owned rail services, but Cornelius began connecting railroads across different regions, constructing an interconnected network. His vision was consolidating these fragmented railways into one massive railroad empire, effectively building a transportation monopoly. As always, he reinvested most profits to acquire additional railroads and accelerate expansion. Within a relatively short period, he had constructed the world's largest railroad network. During his final years, Cornelius did begin directing some of his immense wealth toward charitable causes. He established Vanderbilt University with a $1 million donation, which at that time represented the largest philanthropic gift in American history. Around this period, Cornelius's health deteriorated significantly, eventually confining him to bed. Despite his weakened physical condition, he maintained his characteristic aggressive temperament. When journalists gathered outside his residence to report on his illness, he had to be physically restrained after attempting to go outside and attack them. After months of battling his ailments, he died in 1877 at age 82. The New York Times announced his death, stating the immediate cause was exhaustion, resulting from prolonged suffering from multiple chronic disorders. His fortune totaled approximately $100 million at death, equivalent to roughly $200 billion adjusted for modern inflation. estimates suggest he personally controlled approximately 1/9 of all American currency in circulation at that time. Yet, despite this staggering wealth, he lived relatively modestly, consistently channeling virtually all income and energy into his business enterprises. Upon his death, approximately 90% of his fortune passed to his eldest and favored son, with the remainder divided among his numerous other children, most of whom he considered weak and undeserving. Cornelius Vanderbilt clearly was a polarizing figure, hated by many yet typically commanding grudging respect. Even his adversaries would acknowledge he dramatically improved and expanded transportation infrastructure, first through sailboats, then steamboats, and ultimately railroads. In the process, he connected disparate regions of the country, facilitating easier movement of both people and goods at affordable prices. In many respects, he shaped the American economy more profoundly than any entrepreneur before him. It's quite remarkable that he transformed that initial $100 loan from his mother into a fortune few people in history would ever equal. His legacy remains complex and controversial. On one hand, he was undeniably ruthless, employing predatory business practices that destroyed competitors and consolidated power. He treated family members callously and showed little concern for those he harmed in pursuit of profit. On the other hand, his innovations genuinely revolutionized American transportation, creating infrastructure that benefited millions. Vanderbilt embodied the paradox of American capitalism during the Gilded Age: tremendous innovation and economic development achieved through methods that would today be considered unethical or illegal. He proved that extreme ambition combined with strategic brilliance and relentless execution could overcome almost any obstacle, including poverty and lack of formal education. His story demonstrates both the promise and the problematic nature of unfettered capitalism. The transportation networks he built helped unify a geographically vast nation, enabling economic growth that benefited far beyond his personal interests. Yet his monopolistic practices and aggressive tactics harmed countless individuals and smaller businesses along the way. Perhaps most fascinating is how Vanderbilt continually reinvented himself, recognizing emerging technologies and pivoting entire business models to capitalize on them. From sailboats to steamboats to railroads, he demonstrated remarkable adaptability for someone with minimal formal education. This ability to anticipate market shifts and technological change separated him from competitors who remained wedded to established methods. His willingness to completely abandon profitable existing operations to pursue even greater opportunities showed extraordinary confidence and vision. The Commodore's story also illustrates how concentrated wealth and power can perpetuate across generations, as his fortune established one of America's most prominent dynasties. However, unlike Vanderbilt himself, subsequent generations often squandered this wealth through extravagant spending rather than reinvestment, suggesting that wealth creation requires different skills than wealth preservation. Cornelius built his empire through frugality, hard work, and strategic reinvestment. His descendants often lacked these qualities, demonstrating that fortune alone doesn't guarantee continued success. Today, Vanderbilt's name endures through institutions like Vanderbilt University and in historical accounts of American industrialization. He represents an era of dramatic economic transformation when individual entrepreneurs could accumulate unprecedented wealth and influence. Whether viewed as a visionary builder or a ruthless monopolist depends largely on perspective. But his impact on American business and transportation infrastructure remains undeniable. That initial $100 loan transformed into an empire that reshaped a nation, for better and worse, leaving a complex legacy that continues prompting debate about capitalism, innovation, and the costs of progress.